Hello, everybody. Yeah, welcome back to Restore the Black Family. I'm Ra, and yeah, today we're going to be starting a new series that we would like you all to join us on. Join us all on our new series called Questions for My Father. And the reason why we want to start this series and start this conversation is because we realize that a lot of us grew up and a lot of kids are growing up without their fathers. And what this results in is a lot of children growing up with a father wound. And yeah, we speak about all the other complications, but we hardly ever get into the actual details of what happens to when children grow up without their fathers, or most importantly, grow up not knowing their father's story. So, because it occurred to me when I was listening to Patrick Bet David when he was talking about how the three stages of a relationship that you go through with your father is: first, you idolize your father. He's your hero. He can do no wrong. He's the greatest man that ever lived. There will be no other man greater than him. And the next step, which normally happens around teenagehood, is when he's imposing his rules on you and you start to demonize him because you feel like this guy is ruining my life. He won't let me just be me and do whatever I want. But then the final stage is when you become an adult and now you start to see from his eyes what he was up against, and then you humanize him. And I feel, unfortunately, in our community, most of us only get stuck on the second stage where, yeah, we had some contact with our father as kids. And for all of us, I have yet to meet a child who says they had any contact with their father and didn't think he was the greatest guy. So the idealization phase we all go through. And then something happens between mom and dad, they break up, you don't see dad anymore, and now you're stuck with only the step of demonization. And a lot of us never get past demonizing him, which means that a lot of us haven't truly become adults yet who are healed enough to show up for our children. And ultimately, for us as a family and our whole movement, I don't like to use words like movement, but that's the whole goal of our social push and social drive is, yeah, the whole goal or the purpose is to give our children the best lives that we could possibly give them. And we can't do that unless we have humanized all of our parents, you know. And it's easy to do it with our moms because our moms are there and you grow up with your mom and you go through all the stages with her. But when it comes to dad, especially in our community, this is a deep and like a very serious conversation that needs to be had that we're not having. Why do you think programs like Kumbuleka are so popular? It's because a lot of us are walking around with that father wound, and we're hoping to, yeah, do our part to help us all get to the point where we can humanize our fathers so we can be the present parents that we would like to be for our children and start turning our community, our society, and therefore our country around. Yeah, so with the first question for my father, my wife is gonna ask me something. Hello, wife.
Hello,
Mrs.
husband.
Rejoice Matau. what's your what's your question for your? Oh, sorry. And we encourage you to always send us all your questions. Reach out to us. Maybe we can collaborate. Maybe you can be in studio with us and we can have this conversation because it's definitely an important conversation and we'd like to have it with as many people as possible. So definitely drop all your questions in the comments, DM us directly on all of our pages. Yeah, and most importantly, doing the admin, right? Like, subscribe, share, please. Yes, because yeah, the more we have these type of healthy conversations, the sooner our society improves, and that's what I want, what we want, and I would hope that everybody wants is a better society for our children to grow up in. So, with no further ado, first question, mamas.
Okay. So I've been thinking about this and I'm going to try to make it as concise as possible,
Sure.
right? Without being biased or leaning towards one over the other,
Mm-hmm.
right? What do you think is the number one? It's probably a big question,
Mm.
right? But what is the number one reason
Mm.
for fatherlessness in South Africa, or fathers not being present and active in their children's lives
Mm.
in South Africa?
Okay. Um. Okay. Yeah, without getting all, yeah, like you said, right? I think the biggest missing factor in all of our family histories is, unfortunately, like fatherlessness in our country was on some level institutionalized because we come from Kwakwa, right? Which means there was a time when all of our fathers would go away balodisa, but they'd come home. Go away baloseweta timu, but then they'd come home. And then you have the process of colonization, or more specifically, the process of industrialization, right? Where now the country needs all the workers it can get. And the only way they can get the workers is by removing them from the traditional rural lifestyle where they are directly involved with their kids to go far, far away, kilometers away to go work in factories, right? So I know, for instance, my father, he had to leave home at some point, or he left home at some point to come work in Gauteng. And he was building roads. And his story is the story of a lot of Basotho men who have left Kwanana Mahayeng to come and work Mona Gauteng. What was even the name Gauteng comes from because it's the city of gold. And in Sesotho, gold is Gauta. You understand? So it means, or yeah, there's that history, right? But then what's happened from that history is that you've had generations of boys growing into men without their examples, without having an example of what does it mean for a father to control his emotions and therefore control himself and therefore control his family or make us all be proud to hold his name, right? So, if you've had that going on for generations, what happens is you have the blind leading the blind. A boy is born, he doesn't know his father, or he knows his father, but he barely sees him. Most importantly, he doesn't know his father's story. He doesn't know what his father's struggles were, or how his father overcame those struggles, right? So then he grows up, he becomes an adult male. Manhood is a totally different subject. We'll get into that. But he becomes an adult male, right? And then depending on his life choices, let's say he even becomes a father. But this is a male who was never shown what it means. For instance, like our family name is Bataung, right? Now you have a young Mutaung who's actually now has given birth, not given birth, but you know what I mean, has sired another Mutaum. Now you have two Bataum who are completely lost of what it means to be a Mutaum man. Understand? And then when the struggles come, since you never had an example of how to overcome them and how do you stick by your family even when it's difficult, and we can't, there's no skipping over it, because also if you have girls that are growing up without examples of what it means to be a wife, then relationship issues come in the way. And then when a man is met with so much struggle from his wife because he was never taught how to overcome, it just makes sense that you'll be like, you know what? I love my kids to death. They know where to find me. But the struggles that I'm having within this relationship are more than I can handle. So I'm out. Because also, unfortunately, when you have a broken society, what you have is promiscuity becomes a culture. All of us, a lot of the times, what are we talking about online? We're talking about mjolo. We're not talking about hore. What is the path ya nyala? How do we go from 1 year to 5 years? 5 years, how do we go from 5 to 10? How do we go from 10 to 20? So like the whole concept of family staying together and loving each other and being together through all the struggles. We don't know those examples. Like Manyala already 40 years, 50 years. What then maybe ka bontate moholo le bonkgono. As far as our parents' generation, our peers, the younger generation coming up under us, I'm Jolo here, la dog. I'm Jolo and a whole lot of broken families, you know. So in this series, we're gonna try and talk, like, yeah, specifically focus on the issues that men go through that make it so that we end up where we are, and hopefully come to solutions so that by the time all of our children at least grow up, they know their father's story and therefore they know who they are, and therefore they know, for instance, like with our son, if my son learns nothing else from me, he will know hore, he's a Mutaung, and this is what it means to be a Mutaung man. And therefore, when he goes out into the world, he can go spread our name further and further. Like I said, my goal is to see 1,000 years of Bataung, you know what I'm saying? And now imagine if my father had the same goal and his father had the same goal. We'd be in a totally different position as a community, as a society, as families. So yeah, Let's talk about it, y'all. And yeah. We are the ones we've been waiting for. The power's in our hands. Yeah. Starts with one man. One man changes his family. That family changes its community. The community changes society. The society changes the country. The country changes the world. And we can do it. Let's get it. Let's do it. Yeah. Blessings and peace, progress, and prosperity to you and yours, all of your and your loved ones. From us, from our family to yours. But